Senator Tom Udall has less than 18 months left in what will be his final term in Washington. Among his top priorities in the time he has left is passing meaningful legislation to help deal with climate change. That piqued the interest of environmental correspondent Laura Paskus, who spoke to the senator in our studios last week.
Senator Udall, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to New Mexico in Focus. I wanted to just jump right in. When you look across New Mexico, and you've been a leader on environment issues for a long time, what do you see are kind of some of the top issues within the state that we need to be focused on with respect to environment?
Yeah, I would say the first one would be climate change, and we all know the big impact that's having on New Mexico. You look at our wildfires, our forests are degraded because of these wildfires. It'll be many generations before we get these forests back, and some of the scientists are telling us they may not even come back, that we're going to be in a different kind of forested landscape. The second thing, that huge impact in climate, is water. And New Mexico has always felt that water is very precious, and we need to conserve it, we need to use it wisely, we need to make sure we don't pollute it. And we see across New Mexico a lot of abandoned mines we see that have the potential to pollute. We had the Gold King mine spill. It happened up in Colorado, but it polluted New Mexico water. So I would say wildfires, water, and then the ability of people to live off the land. When you get to agriculture, I mean, we're a good, strong agricultural state, and this is going to hurt our ability to produce. I get so sad when I hear the farmers that I respect who are older, some of them my age, and they say younger people aren't coming into farming. I just love to see the vibrancy of the farmers markets around New Mexico and how young people are coming in. I don't think they're enough, and so we need that dynamic of making sure the water's there so we can produce our own food and produce it locally, so that you don't have all these energy issues in terms of traveling food a long distance.
Right. So you first joined the Senate in 2008, right? And the House in 1999. I think you've worked with 4 different presidents in the White House. How would you characterize the current administration when it comes to climate, energy, water, these important issues?
The first thing I would say is that, we always have a tough campaign in a presidential year. But the thing that's different, and it's very different, it's almost unique to this presidency, is there is not the pulling back together of the country. Attempting, even though maybe 46% of the people voted against you, or you lost. We've had modern elections where you lose the popular vote, but you still win the Electoral College. That's how President Trump got in. This presidency, I do not see the president trying to pull the country together in any way. I mean, he's really totally oriented towards his base, and that is very, very discouraging. And then on the issues I just talked about, I mean, the only way we're going to, and this is so important about climate change, to get policies in place so that we don't devastate the planet and fry the planet, is all of us on the planet, all the other 193 countries in the world working together. And he took us out of Paris. Right. So we're no longer a leader anymore. He's actually encouraging that other people do whatever they want. His energy dominance strategy for the United States, we're up now to pumping 12 million barrels a day of oil. We're the biggest oil producer in the world. So that whole part of it is very, very disturbing. I think they're not leaders when it comes to water. We're seeing where energy and water intersect. They're all on the energy side. And then he's hurting agriculture with these tariffs. There's no doubt about that. All our farmers are so efficient and so good. What they want to do is export. Well, when you have China saying, well, we're not going to buy agricultural products from the United States because of the tariffs the U.S. has put on, then you hurt our farmers' ability to grow their markets. So they're not very good on these issues that we're talking about, and they're certainly not very good on the forests. Because they seem much more oriented towards pushing energy at the expense of everything else. And as you know, the laws that are on the books are multiple use laws that require you to balance energy and wildlife species and energy and recreation. And they're not doing that balancing anymore.
Right. So you mentioned Paris. It was about 2 years ago that the President announced that we were pulling out of the Paris Agreement. And you and I sat down in your office downtown Albuquerque. And one of the things that you told me that I didn't know before was that in 1965, President Lyndon B. Johnson was actually briefed by his advisors about climate change and this experiment that humans were performing on the atmosphere and the earth. And that year, President Johnson addressed Congress about climate change. Why, all these decades later, are we still not moving forward in the ways that we need to be?
Yeah, I think we haven't quite got a hold on the issue. Talking, when I say we, all of the people in the world and all the people in the United States, of to how we're going to do this. The urgency that it's an existential issue, that we're headed towards frying the planet. And then the crucial factor is we are in charge of the thermostat. We forget that for many years of human history, we just had a small impact on the climate and on what was happening with the temperature of the planet, with the generation of greenhouse gases. And the Earth was so resilient that when you put out greenhouse gases, it could take them in and recycle them and do the things that are done out there. And now we're in charge. I mean, we are putting out, the world is putting out so much greenhouse gas that we're on a trajectory that's very, very worrisome and very scary, I think.
Right. So you come from a family with a long legacy on the environment, and I'm thinking specifically of your father, Stuart Udall, who was Secretary of the Interior under Presidents Kennedy and Johnson.
Yes.
And I'm curious, what has changed since your father's time when it comes to working across the aisle, working in Washington, D.C. on environment issues?
Well, one of the things that's changed is the bipartisanship back in that era. Another thing that's changed is the 24-hour media cycle, intensive focus on individuals every minute that are in power. My father had a lot more leeway to study and learn what the issues were. He wrote a book in his first couple of years as Interior Secretary, trying to orient himself as exactly what he wanted to do in his 8 years. And then the coming apart, the thing I talked early on about our democracy, there was the bipartisanship was built on trust of public officials, trust of government, that kind of thing. And when you do the polling today, there's a poll that they've been asking since long time, way back the 60s or even earlier. Do you trust your federal officials to do the right thing most of the time? Back in my father's era, 75% of the people would answer that question yes. Trust your federal officials to do the right thing most of the time. Today, 25%. So we really lack trust in our institutions. We're questioning our democracy. I mean, you're seeing this in populism and nationalist causes. And so it's really up to all of us in public life and those that aren't to start speaking up as to why government's important and what government does for us and how we need to pull together to get these things done.
Right. So in your final time in Congress, in terms of trying to get some Republicans to come on board to support environmental legislation or legislation related to climate change, kind of what are the chances of that?
Well, we're working hard on that. We don't ever give up. And some of these bills that I'm going to talk about and some of the issues are hard ones to push. I mean, the administration is attempting to repeal methane, a methane rule that was put in place by the federal government, and we're in a lawsuit against them. And we're trying to say this was a good rule. It's based on previous laws about waste of these kinds of resources. And I think we have a good shot to win in the courts. And so that's another way to win. You may not have Republicans, but you have the ability to have the courts look at what has gone on and say, we're not going to allow that to go forward. The second thing that's really important is we've built at the state level, and we've done this in New Mexico, renewable electricity standards. So we're telling the power sector every year increase the amount of energy you get from renewable energy. And they've done that dramatically. New Mexico's gone from a 10% standard to a 20% standard, and now they're trying to go for 100% by 2040 in the power sector. So we're doing that at the national level, a national renewable electricity standard. I introduced one and got it through the House with my cousin, Mark Udall. We were never able to pair the two up, but that's what we're trying to do now, get one out of the House, out of the Senate, and make it one bill. And there's so many other issues, like, and they have Republicans in the House on this, the wildlife corridors. You know, one of the things about climate change now, and we didn't mention this earlier, but it's a big issue. It's been studied that we're going to have loss of 1 million species because of climate change, and that's going to be plants and animals, and it's going to be devastating to the environment. And so what we need to do is try to restore the land we have and provide for these iconic species that migrate distances, that they have the places to migrate. Because what human beings have tended to do is chop up all the habitat. So if you can take public lands and willing private landowners to work together, you can create a big corridor so elk and deer and bear and other wild animals out there can move around and have a strong genetic base and be able to really thrive and you know, interact with us to the extent that they do.
Well, thank you very much, Senator Udall, for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Laura.